Well, good evening and welcome to the Choosing Your Uni National Virtual Expo. I'm your host for this session, Rob Malicki, and welcome to this session on Charles Darwin University. Before I get started, I want to let you know what's coming up in the next 20 minutes. And to those of you at home watching on the live stream, thanks for joining me live. You can ask any questions that you have in the chat, whether you're on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, or on the session hub. And we'll try to get to those by the end of this session. For anything we don't get to, we do have the Choosing Your Uni Discord, as well as a Facebook group explicitly for parents. So every single question that gets asked will get a personal answer. In the next 20 minutes, we're going to be talking about what Charles Darwin University is known for, who do well studying there. We're also going to hear a little bit about what students say about studying there, and we're going to dive into its academic strengths. I'm also going to take you through some of the data around how the university performs on both national and international rankings scales. And I'm going to be really straight with you about what those numbers mean, and most importantly, what they mean for you. Because quite often there can be a lot of hype around different rankings. So let's get to the truth of it. And finally, I'm going to take you through which universities I would actually compare Charles Darwin Uni with if I were trying to make that decision. I'm coming to you today from Garigal land in Sydney, and pay my respects to the traditional owners of the land on which I live and work. Now, this whole expo has been made possible by the support of Southern Cross University. So a quick word from Southern Cross, and then we're going to get straight into this session.
One day soon, I'm going to be the boss.
And I'm going to teach and empower the next generation.
One day soon, I'll use science to save the planet.
And one day soon, I'll save lives.
Right now, I'm ready to take the first step.
No matter what your goal, choose a pathway at Southern Cross University to transform your future.
Let me give you a statistic that might surprise you. Charles Darwin University has a higher graduate employment rate than the University of New South Wales. It's higher than the University of Sydney, it's higher than the ANU. 85.9% of CDU graduates are in full-time work within 4 months of finishing their degree. That's from national data. And it puts Charles Darwin above 3 key group of 8 universities on possibly one of the most important numbers for most students, which is, will you get a job at the end of this degree? And of course, the group of 8 universities are the most famous, prestigious institutions in the country. I don't think a lot of people on the East Coast or elsewhere in Australia would have guessed that that would be the case. But let me save you a little bit of time, because Charles Darwin University isn't for everybody. If you're somebody that's chasing that absolute prestige factor, like the University of Sydney or Uni Melbourne brand, it sits at 584th on the QS World University Rankings, which honestly, it's respectable for its size, but it's nowhere near like the top 100 style positions of the group of 8 institutions. So if where you do your degree and having that sort of prestigious logo on your testama is what's important to you, Charles Darwin might not be the right place. It also might not be the place for you if you're looking for that buzzing, massive inner city campus experience. Tens of thousands of students in the heart of a city where you walk out of class and you've got laneways and coffee shops and dumpling houses sitting right there. No, that's not what you're going to get with CDU. Darwin is, of course, the capital city, but it's one of our smallest ones. The main Casuarina campus for Charles Darwin University sits about 12 kilometres from the centre of the city in a lovely leafy suburb. It's beautiful, but it's not George Street on a Saturday night. It's also probably not for you if you don't like the heat, if you don't like the tropics, or if yeah, sorry, I've just kind of lost my train of thought there. I mean, it's hot and humid in Darwin. Now, of course, Darwin has multiple campuses, not only throughout the territory, but it also has some study centres in other places around Australia. And diversity is a big part of the university. So being part of a diverse community is core to the experience of being at CDU. So that speaks to you, and living in one of the most extraordinary places in Australia, in my view, in the territory, then hang about, because we've got some really great facts about this institution. But before we get there, let's take a pause and let's hear from a student that studied at Charles Darwin Uni. What's it been like studying here? I mean, where in Sweden are you from?
I'm from a city called Skövde, but I used to study in Jönköping.
And how does this compare? What's it like suddenly landing in Darwin?
The first thing is that...
Warm.
Yeah, it's warm. Like in Sweden we used to walk into a sauna, but here you walk out to the sauna.
I like that.
Yeah.
And what's it like studying here? So what kind of classes are you doing?
I'm doing some social work units. But the main difference that I notice is that in Sweden we used to do like one unit at a time. And when that's finished, we've already gotten a grade on that, then we begin on the next one. So we have like the same amount of units in one semester, but we do them separately, one at a time.
Awesome.
Here we do like everyone at the same time. So that's a major difference.
Nice. And what's it like? What's the vibe like on campus? Are people pretty relaxed? Are they friendly? What's it like?
Yeah, I'd say that they're pretty relaxed and friendly, actually.
All right, well, here are 3 things that I think define CDU. The first is that it's genuinely the university of remote, regional and Indigenous Australia. This isn't just branding, it's the core of what Charles Darwin does. It's the only university in the Northern Territory, and it was built to serve communities that the rest of the sector, the rest of Australia, just simply does not reach. You'll see that in the student mix. It's got a strong cohort of Indigenous and remote-based students and dedicated support through the First Nations Student Success Team. You'll see it in the mix of subjects, things like nursing, education, social work, environmental science, and public health. And these have placements that put students directly into communities that really need them. So if making a difference in parts of Australia that are chronically underserved matters to you, almost no other institution in the country is as well positioned to do that. Second, and this is that kind of tropical element, but overlapping with the Indigenous side of things too, tropical and Indigenous health research. Charles Darwin's research identity is built around one standout partnership, and that's the Menzies School of Health Research. It's co-located with the Royal Darwin Hospital. Menzies is one of Australia's leading medical research institutes, and it focuses on tropical diseases, Indigenous health, and the kinds of public challenges that you can really only study where they happen. That gives CDU health students access to a research ecosystem that's genuinely unique in Australia. So if you want to work in health, in the tropics, or in remote settings, or you're interested in the intersection between medicine, policy, and culturally safe practice, this university should be on your list. We've actually got a whole session on getting into medicine run by Mission Med, and you'll find it's also about the UCAT exam, the University Clinical Aptitude Test, and you'll find that in the session description down below. Third, is the dual sector model for Charles Darwin University. It's one of the few universities that runs both TAFE, that's technical and further education, if you're not familiar with it. That's our vocational education, and a university, so TAFE and uni, under the same roof. And that matters for practical reasons. Firstly, you can start with a certificate or a diploma at TAFE level and work your way all the way up to a degree, even to a doctorate. And what that does is mean you carry your knowledge, carry your learning, carry your credits through without there being a lot of friction of moving from like a TAFE provider through to a university. It's all under one roof. You can mix vocational and academic study. So for students that don't come through a standard ATAR pathway, ATAR of course being the ranking, percentage rank between 99.95 and 0, that determines how a lot of school leavers actually get into uni. That pathway is genuinely flexible and valuable to go in through TAFE. And of course, if cost is a factor, then starting by going to TAFE, where a lot of studies are either less expensive or are subsidised, sometimes even free, can be a great pathway into uni because it allows you to get some credit under your belt in advance for less cost. We've got a whole session on Australian government support for university studies. We talk about the help loan, we talk about prac payments that are available for students doing practical placements. We're talking about OS study and a number of other things, and you'll find that description down below. That's a must watch for any local Australian student. Let's now dive into let me back up one step. Something just occurred to me as I was talking before. So we've talked about sort of 3 highlights. There's a 4th for me, and that's just the territory. The territory is freaking awesome. Yes, it can be hot, it can be humid for much of the year, but wow, it's an adventure wonderland. There are only a couple of places in Australia. Well, actually, no, that's not quite true. There are a number of places in Australia that I think call to certain types of students. There's Tasmania. If you love the outdoors, you love temperate environments, the mountains, Tassie should be on your radar to go and study there. Darwin to me is the same. If you love the outdoors, you love camping, you love fishing, you like the heat and humidity, you love the wide open spaces and the stars at night, Darwin is a place, and the Northern Territory is a place that will speak to you and is definitely worth considering moving to for the right kind of student. So that's the 4th reason for me. Now let's get into the academic stuff, and we'll talk about areas that CDU offers and where it's particularly strong. So firstly, the university is organised into 4 higher education faculties. It's got arts and society, health science and technology, and business and law, plus the Charles Darwin TAFE division. Now, across these different academic areas, it's got 300 different programs, everything from certificates and diplomas right up to doctorate studies. And with 20,000 students, that's quite a lot of breadth. Charles Darwin's international profile rests on that flagship research partnership that I was talking about before with Menzies. Menzies been running since the 1980s and focuses on all those problems that really matter up in the tropics. Things like malaria, rheumatic heart disease, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander health, infectious diseases in tropical environments. This is the kind of work that doesn't get done anywhere else in Australia at the same scale. And CDU gives you something that most mid-sized universities don't have. That's a claim to being genuinely amazing on an international scale in this specific research area. But beyond health, we've talked a lot about health so far in this session. CDU has built serious capacity in environmental and tropical sciences. It's got the Research Institute for Environment and Livelihoods, known as RIEL, and this studies tropical ecosystems, biodiversity and climate adaptation across Northern Australia. This is work that just can't be done in Melbourne or Sydney, and definitely those institutions elsewhere in the country don't have that same sort of depth in this area because you're in the ecosystem when you're in Darwin and in the territory. So if you're interested in environmental science, conservation, and the management of tropical landscapes, CDU is one of the best field classrooms in the whole world. I'm just laying it out there. And then there's the whole energy sector, which is a really important one. CDU runs the Renewable Energy Microgrid Test Facility at the Casuarina campus, and this is a working research platform looking at how remote communities and industry sites can move off diesel and onto renewables. And tell you what, hasn't this year, more than any year, shown us how critical this is for our sovereign security and for our remote communities. In fact, not just remote communities, major communities around the country. So this is one of the key areas in Australia where this research is going on. This work is going on. Combined with the North Australia Centre for Oil and Gas, that puts Charles Darwin Uni in an unusual position. It's a small-ish sort of university, sitting right in the middle of Australia's energy transition. And that's really interesting, especially for northern and remote contexts. So if you're interested in sustainability, engineering for remote infrastructure, this is a place that's going to suit you really, really well. CDU is also a member of the IRU, the Innovative Research Universities of Australia, which is a coalition of 7 Australian universities who have a shared focus on research, social impact, and community engagement. Being part of that network gives CDU students access to collaborations across institutions like James Cook in Townsville and Cairns, Western Sydney, and La Trobe Uni. Now, on the teaching side, Charles Darwin has been built from the ground up for flexibility. A large proportion of students at CDU study online or externally. Many programs are fully available online with regional placements and intensive on-campus residentials, part of the program where they're relevant. This is important because if you're in a regional area or you're working and relocating to Darwin isn't on the cards, that delivery model gives you flexibility. The other thing that's really worth flagging is the physical transformation underway in Darwin itself. CDU has been investing around $250 million into the Denala Education and Community Precinct, a new teaching and community hub in the Darwin CBD right down by the harbour. It's beautiful. It's still under construction in many ways, but by the time many Year 10 and 11 students watching this get there, the university will have a significantly expanded city presence alongside that suburban Casuarina campus. There's also a new 350-bed accommodation village in the middle of the city, and that's part of that same expansion. So this is an institution, and look, I'm just going to go a little bit off script here, but I really love institutions that are taking what they do into the heart of their communities. We've seen it in places like Perth, where Edith Cowan has opened a campus right in the middle of Perth. I've seen it in Tasmania, where Uni of Tasmania has brought campuses from outside Launceston right into the heart of Launceston, and its main campuses from all across Hobart into the centre of Hobart. And the same is happening at Charles Darwin. That presence out at Casuarina is always going to be there, and it's going to be really valuable. But it's also establishing itself right in the heart of the city, which opens up more opportunities for all sorts of different students. All right, let's now jump into some of those ratings and rankings. We've already looked at one number, which I'll recap, but made the university look really good. And there's another number that we maybe need to dive into a little bit because it raises some questions. Charles Darwin has that one figure where it outperforms the group of 8 institutions, and that's on graduate employment. And we're going to dive into that in just a second. But firstly, this data comes from the national data set. It's the Quality Indicators for Learning and Teaching. It's the Australian government's survey system where they survey literally hundreds of thousands of students from across Australia, as well as thousands of graduate employers. And that data can be really trusted to give you a good sense of an institution. It's also really important with rankings to look into the details and figure out which of these factors that you're looking at are actually important to you. Because if an institution in one area has, ratings that aren't that great in the sciences, but you want to go and study humanities and the arts, well, it probably doesn't matter to you that much. Always look at the rankings that actually matter for what you want to do. So the first number that I wanted to dive into here is overall student satisfaction at Charles Darwin, which at 70%, 70.2% is a number we need to talk a little bit about because it's below the national average and it's among the lower student satisfaction scores in the sector. Now, part of what that is, in fact, I think a large part, is about who Charles Darwin is trying to serve and who they're trying to engage with higher education. They serve regional and highly remote and diverse cohorts. These are students in far-flung places who might have unstable internet, they might have complex personal circumstances, they might have no family history at all with higher education. And those students are going to be far harder to satisfy than a student studying on a nice manicured inner city campus. So whilst that number might be on the lower end, please take it with a grain of salt because every institution has got its strengths and the people it talks to. We know that higher education is transformational for people. It changes lives. And that's particularly true for people living in regional and remote communities and for our First Nations people as well. Charles Darwin is taking that head on. Maybe it suffers a little bit on that top line student satisfaction rating as a result, but those students are still getting lifetime benefit from their experiences. Now let's have a look at that graduate employment number, which we looked at to begin with, 85.9, nearly 86% of students who are in a full-time job within 4 months of finishing their degree. Much higher than UNSW, University of Sydney, ANU. And it's one of the things that reflects Charles Darwin's strengths. It's an institution that leads people directly into the workforce. The Northern Territory needs people with skills and knowledge and experience. It's desperate for nurses, teachers, health science students, all these kind of disciplines, engineers. And so when you finish a degree at Charles Darwin Uni, there's a job pretty much waiting for you if you want it. If we're looking at jobs, then we should also look at the median graduate salary, which at $75,000 is above the national average. And in fact, it's substantially higher than what you'll see from much more prestigious institutions. Now, part of that is about the Northern Territory economy and workforce. These businesses and organisations in the Territory need skilled workers. Skilled workers are in demand and they're paid accordingly. It also reflects the fact that Charles Darwin is training people in the health sciences, in trades and technical fields. And these trades, careers tend to have decent starting salaries as well. But in both cases, employment, you want a job, you want your degree or your TAFE qualification to lead you somewhere into work, CDU is a great offering. If we look at the global rankings, and I mentioned this earlier on, CDU is ranked just about 600th in the world on the QS rankings. And interestingly, on the Times Higher Education ranking, it ranks higher. It ranks in the 400 to 500 range, which is equal 26th in Australia. Now, those numbers might not be like in the headlines, but I've got to say, those rankings, the global ones, they really reward massive research output. So the big universities, the group of 8 who are churning out tons of research, they're getting internationally recognition on their research. They do much better on these rankings because part of it's just a volume game. Those rankings, however, don't necessarily measure very well, are you going to get a job? How well you're going to be taught? or whether your degree is going to serve the community that you actually want to work in. So for me, the Charles Darwin graduate employment and salary numbers tell you more about day-to-day outcomes than those big global rankings. Now you can compare all of the numbers when it comes to different institutions and how they rank and what's important to you. You can do that on the Choosing Your Uni platform. It takes about 30 seconds to join and it's free. And it's all based around your interests and preferences and goals to help you figure out what to study and where to study it. So if I were making the decision about where to go and study, I wouldn't look at Charles Darwin Uni in isolation. So let's have a look at what some of the options are. The first one is a geographical comparison. Okay, there's no other university in the territory. So the nearest kind of comparable institution is James Cook University, which is also in the tropics over in Queensland. And it's got campuses in Townsville and Cairns, so squarely sitting in the tropics. And it also shares CDU's focus on things like tropical health, remote communities and Indigenous education. And it operates in that climate and cultural context that most East Coast or Southern universities can't match. So if part of the appeal of Charles Darwin is the tropics and the specific kind of work that gets done in regional and remote Australia, check out the James Cook University session as well. It's genuinely the closest thing that you're going to find in Australia. The next one for me is a characteristic match, and that's CQ University. CQU is in Rockhampton in central Queensland. And for me, it's comparable because it's also a dual sector university. It's the only one in Queensland that's dual sector, which means you have that TAFE and higher education under the same roof. It's also got a heavy focus on regional and remote students. It's got extremely strong graduate employment, like CDU at about 86%, and does a lot of online learning as well. So CDU and CQU are kind of like cousins. One's from the territory and one's from Queensland, but they both basically have the sort of same mission. And so if what's pulling you towards Charles Darwin, those kind of elements like regional, remote Australia, the different mix of subjects, CQU is definitely a comparison that you might make as well. I'll throw you an out-of-the-box suggestion now, and that's the University of New England, which is in New South Wales, and it's in Armidale, which is in the lovely New England region. Farmland, rolling hills, big blue skies. It's a lovely part of the country. Now, Armidale, it isn't the tropics, and it isn't a dual sector university, but philosophically, Charles Darwin and UNE have something in common, and that's the distance and flexible learning. Both of these institutions, into their DNA, is wired this idea that you should be able to study on your own terms. They both serve students who can't or won't relocate to a capital city, and both have that super strong graduate employment. UNE's a little bit stronger even at 89%, even though Charles Darwin 86%. I mean, they're both punching well above their weight in this kind of rankings. So if Charles Darwin's remote first, flexible first model is what appeals to you, then UNE is definitely worth a look as well. And we've of course got sessions on all of the universities as part of this National Virtual Expo. Now, we're just about out of time. Let me see if I can get to one of our pre-asked questions. Come on, Charles Darwin. I haven't got, my papers are all over the place. I'm really sorry. I can't find it right now, and I don't want to keep you waiting. All the questions, we'll make sure, I did have a couple, they'll be up in the Choosing Your Uni Discord, and if you're a parent, the Choosing Your Uni Facebook group, details in the session description down below. And it's been great joining you for this session on Charles Darwin University, an institution that I think is really worth a look. And once again, one of those institutions for the right student should draw you there no matter where it is that you live. Have yourself a lovely evening. It's been lovely chatting with you. My name's Rob Malicki. I'll see you throughout the National Virtual Expo. Take care. Well, I hope you got something out of this session. And if you have any questions at all, you can head to choosingyouruni.com and ask Lumen. Lumen is your AI guide who knows about every university, every pathway, every option that we've talked about throughout this virtual expo. And Lumen is available to talk to you 24/7. So it's ready when you are.